Hey everybody, this is Sean, aka Mr. Reaper. Today I'm actually going to be running you guys through the song that you voted for on Facebook. So I recently came out with an EP. It's on Apple Music, Spotify, basically like all the major music streaming sites, and I will link that. So if you want to listen to it, you can go for it. So I'm going to be running through the most voted on song, which is called Same Shit, Different Story. So something interesting about this song is it's one of the first like actual songs that I produced. It originally came out as a single. I tweaked a little bit, I remastered it, just changed it up a little bit for the EP just so it wasn't the exact same. So yeah, let's run through it. Alright, so let's start at the beginning here. I'm just gonna solo this first synth. Okay, so as you can hear with that, there's like a rising sound with it. What I was doing there is I had the cutoff modulating and going up. So it kind of gave the effect of like, just like increasing with sound and increasing with power. So let me show you what that sounds like with everything else. So I'll start it a little bit ahead just so it's not directly from the beginning again. So that rising is a lot more subtle when you add everything else in. So I'll show the drums maybe last, just because they're pretty basic. So I don't really think I need to go too in depth with them. But let me show you the next synth that's coming in. So it's this guy right here. Let me solo it real quick, and I'll show you what that sounds like by itself. So this is really one of my first times like figuring out really how LFOs kind of work. So this is an LFO right here, and as you can see there's a line going across. That line is like in rhythm, and then so this LFO is connected to this filter right here. It kind of like adjusts the cutoff, so that's what's giving it like that pinging sound. So without that, it would sound like this. So I felt like that just kind of mixed well with kind of like the drowny synth, just to give it a little bit more like dynamic sound instead of it just being like all different synths just playing out. Then it actually increases once it gets to measure 25. So hearing it on its own, it's actually obviously easy to pick out, but when you mix it with everything else, it's actually a little harder to pick out. See, it's much harder to hear it, especially because when this synth down here comes in. I'll show you what that sounds like. It's a really pretty synth. It's very powerful, so it kind of drowns out the LFO synth. And then up here we have, so this is actually a weird rhythm. I'm gonna show you what this sounds like. So I'm gonna play that with just that and the drums, so you can kind of hear, or yeah, the drums, just so you can kind of hear how like wonky the rhythm is, but it kind of works. It's cool. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Something I want to play around with. It can really add something to your song because it kind of just throws off the rhythm, and it's cool. So now comes the hook. If you've heard the song, you know exactly what the hook is. So I was talking to a buddy, and I originally didn't have this hook in, and he was saying that I needed something to go from like the beginning right into the chorus. So I'm like, all right, let me think of something. I don't know why, but this came to me, so I'll show you what it is if you haven't heard it. So I went with SpongeBob. I don't know, I just thought it was funny. And people have actually pointed out that there's technically too many of the IMs in there, and I kind of did that on purpose just to throw off the rhythm a little bit. I like to change things up a little, just to make it more interesting. Alright, so let's get into the chorus now. So we have added a few more synths. We have, they're more bassy synths. If you notice, there's not really any bass going on in the beginning of this. The bass really kicks in here, so I'll kind of just go down the line of them. So here's the first bass. So I kind of think of those basses like whips, because it sounds like whipping around. So I kind of call them like whip basses. I don't know what you would actually call that. I believe I'm doing that with an LFO. Yeah, so here's another use for an LFO. Depending on how you have it shaped, it'll affect the sound. So basically what's happening is when the downbeat hits, it's actually not really giving a sound, but once it gets the upbeat, that's what's giving that whip sound. So and let's go to the next bass. So it's a very, very deep bass. This is just supposed to coincide with the kick, just to give it a little more like, just to make it sound a little wider, just so the kick isn't on its own. It has something to complement it. And that also helps with, so let's solo these two. So this is the weird groove synth, and then the bass that you just heard. So you'll hear kind of how like they kind of fight with each other, but they also like go together too. There's a lot better examples doing that. That's not the best example of it, but alright, so let's listen to, I don't even know what this one's called. Yeah, I don't remember what this is, so let's find out together. So it's kind of like a mid-ranged bass. It's not really a bass, it's kind of just sitting in the mids. So I actually have this side chain to the kick, so every time the kick hits, that's what's kind of giving it that same sound that the LFOs were doing, but this is just side chaining, so it's really just keeping it from like hitting with the kick. What that helps do is it allows the kick to breathe, so it's kind of doing the opposite of what I wanted to do with this bass here. So this bass is making the kick fatter, whereas this is what I'm doing with it here is I'm allowing the frequencies to not conflict so they don't phase each other out. So then all of that continues on, and then I actually add this synth back in, and I have the gain go back up, so it kind of fades in. that just continues on, and then we get to the, it's kind of like the bridge. A lot of my bridges are very like just soft and chill. So I'll just show you what that sounds like. Come back in with the bass in a weird groove, and then actually I add on to the weird groove, I add another whole another octave of it doing the same thing, just it's another set of notes. So if I bring it up here, here's the normal one that I had, and then I added this in just to give it a little more like depth. So I'll show you what that sounds like. I'll show you it before and after. So and then so that just continues on, and then I add it. Brought this guy back in from earlier, which was up here, and I'm going to show you. It sounds kind of cool. I wanted to just change it up a little bit for the ending. So you can hear that it goes from like kind of like a very not distorted, but kind of distorted sound to a very clean sound. I wanted to do that just to give it like a little bit of a different sound. So it kind of just goes from like the weird sound, and it just like ends very nicely and peacefully. So I mean, yeah, so that's basically the song. So let me actually run through the master real quick. So I really didn't do anything in the master, just a limiter and a little bit of EQ. The limiter is just to get it a little louder. Oh, actually, sorry, I completely missed one of my tracks. I'll get back to that in a second. So the mastering is just a limiter and an EQ, and on everything I've done a little bit of EQing or compressing, or something along those lines, depending on what it is. EQ'd all the drums. Some of them are limited, but yeah, not too much as far as mastering goes for this. Honestly, I didn't really think I needed it, but so let me actually get back to this track now. Completely forgot. So I kind of did like a solo. So I mean, I didn't really like practice that in advance. I kind of just went for it. That's normally how I do my solos. I don't really like come up with a distinct solo and play it over and over again. I listen to my track a few times, and I just play and see what happens, and that's how this came out. Now, since it's all MIDI information, I can correct things if I mess up, or I can alter things. Like, it would have probably been a lot dirtier, and like there's still a little bit of cleaning up I could do, but yeah, I mean, overall, I kind of just go for it, see what happens. Normally it works, sometimes it doesn't, but yeah, so that's the video. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. Make sure to like, subscribe. I will be most likely doing this for the other two tracks. and then any future songs that I come out with, especially if there's something more interesting about them that I'd like to explain. All right, thank you.